Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth, shifting you into higher consciousness. A show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, interviews with inspiring guests, experts, and celebrities, intuitive readings, channeled messages, mental health awareness, and hot topics to expand your awareness. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magical moments.
Hello, welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. This is Eden, and we have Kim here. She's a little distracted. Hi. Yeah. Hi. This is part 2 of our anniversary special and Raw and Real special series that we're doing. The Raw and Real is really just about Kim and I sharing more personal, intimate parts of our lives and our personalities, and hope you guys are enjoying that, us sharing those things. Today we're going to be having Skylar come on, who we usually talk about, who's typically doing behind the scenes stuff during our Zoom broadcasts, and she does our social media. She's going to come on and talk about a very important topic that she's been doing her own, kind of like making her own, and so she can start working with other people on this. So she's going to sound a lot better than me in explaining it, so I'm going to give it to her in a minute. But this is about kind of trapped emotions, letting go of trapped emotions, and how important that is. And that's Kim, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it started because lately in sessions with clients, I've been hearing a lot of people feeling states of kind of like when you have a day where you feel like a lot of things have gone wrong, or maybe there's been some anxiety, fear, or overwhelm, or even maybe some sadness. And by the end of the night, everything's built up inside of you and you feel like you're going to explode. And so in that case, there's many different things you can do, and we'll go into that with Skylar. But you also sometimes just need an energetic release. So besides talking about it and crying it out, or working with a healer or journaling, sometimes in that situation, I myself do this, or I tell them to do this, is just literally go out for a drive and scream in your car, or scream into a pillow, or go ground yourself in nature, or throw some music on and sing at the top of your lungs. Sometimes that's going to help just get you to a place so that you can even be at a place to process your emotions, because sometimes it's in such a state of overwhelm that you can't even think straight. And so I've been talking a lot to people about that, and about feeling the emotion and labeling it, or not labeling it, but deciphering what it is, what you're feeling, and just figuring out, like, is this just an old habit coming up, or is it something I really need to feel? And so Skylar, why don't you come on and tell us more about what you're working on, what you're doing with people, and why this is also important.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So what I do is I have the emotion release coaching, which is where it's another version of those energetic releases of emotions, where we tune in and we dive into basically your subconscious by using muscle testing, which is a form of bypassing kind of that conscious mind and going into the subconscious mind, which is where a lot of those emotions are trapped and stored, especially the ones that we kind of build up throughout the day, or from any point in our lives. And so the process allows us to, through muscle testing and process of elimination, getting to the pinpoint of a specific emotion that may be blocking you from being able to live more freely or more clear-headed to make those decisions, or things that feeling that overwhelm of emotion are stopping you from doing, to then pinpoint that, figure out what point in your life it actually started from, and release it so that you can make room for more enjoyable emotions to come in, and things that you are really wanting to have in your life, but maybe those overwhelm of emotions are blocking you from achieving. And of course, that's there's like a big process with that, but a lot of it is just being able to pinpoint it. Like you were saying, it helps so much to know what emotion it is, and being able to then know how to help yourself through that and process it through that energetic release.
So you said that sometimes it's that the emotion stems from or is rooted somewhere else. It's not always right in front of us what we think is going on or the cause of why we feel a certain way, right?
Yeah, and because if, say, like for example, you had a something happen when you were like 8 years old where it caused you a lot of anxiety, and if that anxiety wasn't dealt with, it was either pushed down or it was just completely ignored, then that emotion will get trapped. And when that emotion gets trapped in our body, it becomes easier for us to attract that anxiety in other situations in the rest of our life unless we release that emotion. So if you're feeling like anxiety later in your life, it could be a result of the anxiety that you felt when you were that younger age that became trapped. So when we release those emotions, it makes it so that you can no longer attract that specific anxiety from those type of situations. And then, yeah, I think I answered that question.
No, I think
yeah, and it's amazing how, like, I got certified in, it was a class where there was a lot of people in the class, and it was called energy connection healing, and it was very similar with muscle testing and figuring out trapped emotions. And it was amazing seeing so many people in one room being so accurate, muscle testing each other, and how so many emotions were all coming up, and how amazing it is that you can actually do muscle testing, which a lot of people don't realize what that is. So maybe you can go into that a little bit, but how accurate that can be to help you get to a place of releasing whatever's trapped inside of you.
Yeah, it's crazy accurate. I know, like the first time, I mean, my mom, Eden, always did muscle testing growing up. I would always see her do it. So I was exposed to it, but I was never really did it myself until I did these muscle testing emotion releases with somebody else, and realizing how accurate it was. I was like, wow, I want to be able to do this for other people also, and seeing how much it helped and changed my life and how accurate it was to be able to allow me to put different things that happened in my life together to where I am now. And then, yeah, so muscle testing it's a way of, like I said earlier, tapping into the subconscious where a lot of our things are stored. And how it works is there are a bunch of different ways you can do muscle testing. The way that is easiest for me that I use is you're basically standing up straight. And you ask yourself any yes or no question. You can start off by just testing it out with like your name. So for me, I would do like, my name is Skylar, and a yes answer is normally a forward sway. And then you can say, I would say like, my name is Bob or something like that. And a sway backwards would be a no answer. And then that would be like a baseline test, so you know what your yes and no is. And then after that, you can go into like, do I have an emotion I need to release right now? And your body will go forward or backwards. And then, is this emotion anxiety? Is this confusion? Like whatever emotions you might be feeling are what you're resonating with, and you'll get an answer. And you can ask what age it happened at, if it was about this specific situation. It's basically like asking yourself or investigating, your emotional state so that you can help yourself release it and work through it in an easier way. And everybody can do this on their own, as well as, with me or with a different coach.
So why is it important to do this?
At least from my perspective and what I've been able to see in its importance from myself doing it is, I think the biggest thing is understanding yourself, and being able to understand kind of how you work emotionally and why certain things may trigger you, or why you may behave, like react or act in certain ways because of experiences that you've had and emotions that you've had reactions to. And because you're able to then understand yourself and certain things that you do, you're then able to release those more negative habits and behaviors associated with trying to protect yourself from feeling those emotions, to then actually make real progress towards the goals that you want to achieve in your life, because you don't have those blocks anymore. And releasing that energetic feeling of those emotions makes room for more of the stuff that you want to actually come in, because your body is being freed of the weight that you've been holding for however many years you've been holding this emotion in your body.
Absolutely.
I think another thing to add to that of why it's so important is you would have not only be healthier within as an individual, but you'll have healthier relationships.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of the huge things that this helps with, because then when you're able to understand yourself and connect more to those emotions, you can express that to others more effectively, but also make the space for those healthier relationships when you're able to know why you're getting triggered in certain ways from people, or releasing old stories from other relationships you might have had, so that future ones have more room for positive growth.
Yeah, because a lot of times, sorry, Kim. Did you want to say something?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Just a comment is, I get a lot of this with clients is that they say that they continue to attract the wrong person into their lives, and always think it's someone else's fault. But usually it's about looking within and finding out what is it inside them that they're constantly attracting that type of energy that they need to change or heal.
Yeah. Well, and then another thing with the work that I do in this emotion releasing and, just in general, is a lot of times when we have those tough emotions, especially when it comes to relationships, is we can build energetic heart walls. And those heart walls are like huge, like gates and barriers in front of our heart that are protecting us from those emotions that have hurt us. And when the emotion is super, super strong is when we create those heart walls. And that blocks us intensely from being able to have good relationships, because our heart is blocked off energetically, and there's no way for anybody to get in, and there's no way for us to give anything out, because there's this huge wall in front of it. And so releasing those emotions releases that heart wall, so that your heart is more open to others, but also to yourself.
Yeah, and it gets challenging sometimes, because some people block their heart wall, or just get so blocked with their emotions and not wanting to feel them that they become almost like a different person, and they're so in their story that they don't even realize they need to get help. And I think it takes sometimes for those people to have something happen where they break down or crumble, or something happens that challenges them extremely, so that they hit bottom and they go, oh my gosh, I have to find a way out. And then they finally ask for help. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that when I'm explaining this to a client about releasing emotions, or needing coaching, or needing some sort of inner child healing, any type of work on yourself, if you want to think of it like, think of yourself as, you're a stick figure, and you're just this pure soul, this human being that was born, and you're just all love. But then imagine that stick figure through the years. There's layers of something happened, like you were bullied at school, the parents, got divorced, or there was a death in the family, or you had a terrible breakup, or there was some sort of abuse. all of a sudden there's all these layers covering who your true self is, who your heart is. And what happens is if people don't heal those things, they're acting and thinking and behaving and communicating through those layers of grief, pain, sadness, anger, trauma, and they're not communicating or thinking clearly. And so the more you can work on yourself and get rid of those layers and get back to your heart center and your true self, then you're going to be acting, behaving, and thinking and communicating more true and pure without those layers that are actually causing you a lot of suffering.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we can all agree that we've definitely experienced that too, like feeling the difference between before you do it and then when you're on the other side, and I mean realizing that, wow, that was a lot of layers I had to get rid of, or to be able to get over here.
Absolutely. Yes. It's been a lot of work, and you're never done. And that's the thing that I think people get. They think, okay, well, I'm going to do 3 sessions with somebody and I'm done. And it's really, I mean, you can be if you're comfortable in that, but if you want to really be your best self and be free and happy, then it takes kind of always being dedicated to working on yourself in some way.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. And even if they do 3 sessions with someone, but then as long as the work continues with themselves is what's the important thing.
Right. I agree.
And you can do, speaking of that, like wanting people to work on themselves. I know you do remote sessions, or what is the other one called where you do the work for them because they're not doing their own work?
Well, those ones would be more for if people have already worked with me. The remote sessions are more for if you have worked with me and it's just you don't have the time but want to continue doing that kind of work. But what I do more with people is just the regular emotion release coaching. And I also have personal development coaching, which is something that I like to put together. But in terms of the emotion release, it's basically a 90-minute thing where we go through everything, the process that basically I was explaining, the muscle testing and pinpointing specific emotions that you can release, and just talking through it if you want to. When you do these emotion releasings, you really don't have to talk about the experiences, which is something a lot of people like, because releasing it and finding it the way that we do it you don't have to relive the memory if there is something that comes up. Because that's sometimes a process for people, but sometimes it's not necessary for others. And so the process is really what I was saying. It's just the muscle testing and, talking through whatever is needed to talk through, and then finding ways to how can you then implement what you have released and what can you now do differently to fill those spaces of what you've released.
Right. And then what about forgiveness? That's a big one, I think, that that people hold on to, and it creates a lot of different types of emotions when there is unforgiveness involved. And what if there's someone who has done some things that are really hurtful, but it's not serving you, holding on to that unforgiveness? What's the best way to release that type of emotion?
Well, every time we release an emotion, I always have the person forgive themselves and whoever or whatever is involved in that emotion. But I think there's a difference between forgiveness and acceptance. You can forgive, but not completely, be okay with what had happened. But forgiveness is more of something for you. It's not for the other person. It's for you so that you can move on and so that you can let go, so that you can continue on your life without being held back by this. And the forgiveness is not saying, I forgive you because I want you to feel better. It's because I forgive you because it's time for me to let this go, instead of holding on to it. Because when you don't have to always forgive people, but holding on to it and saying that you don't want to forgive people because they don't deserve forgiveness is more punishment for yourself than it is for the other person. And I think that's one of the big things about forgiveness that we don't always understand, is it's hurting us more than it is the other person, because we're the ones holding on to it, not them.
Yeah, and you're not saying because I forgive you, it means it's okay what you did and you could keep doing it. You still get to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's
when
something you can create yourself.
Yes.
Right. And when I lead clients through letting go of that, I say, you know, the person might not have known any better, but they also might really just be an evil person. Sometimes it is the case, you know, it could be someone's just really a horrific person, or it could be that most of the time, almost always, it's that they did the best they could with what they had and they didn't really know better. And as you get older and older, you realize that about adults. You know, when you're a kid, you think adults know everything. As you get older, you're like, everyone's just human. And, you know, you end up being like, you know, I'm 48 and sometimes I feel 28, you know, so it doesn't really have to do with age. It's just about being human.
Yeah, we're all walking around with some type of pain, even though we feel like we're the only one who's suffering in some sense. There's more community in the afflicted than there is in the not afflicted, and we just don't pay as much attention to that because we're always in our own head about things. But even if people are like purely evil people, there's always something that it's coming from, and you know, something that they're reacting to in that sense because of maybe some trapped emotions that they need to release.
It always comes back to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's some who are just like, they like where they're at and they don't think there's anything wrong with them at all. But, you know, I get that a lot too with people. Not that there's something wrong. I shouldn't even label it as something wrong. It's just that they have had negative experiences that are unresolved. Unresolved trauma.
They also might not actually see anything wrong with it because it's all they've known.
Yeah.
So it's just a perspective that's very different from every single person there is.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that people get scared to uncover the emotions because they feel they might get stuck in them, or they might have to relive the experience of whatever it might be. And I think that, you know, if those listening can decide to be brave about it and realize that lots of people before you have gone through it and come out so much brighter and better. So to look for other people with stories that have come out of it, you know, feeling great, it'll give you motivation to go get the healing you need, and realize that it's easier to face it for a short time and feel good long time than to always have that underlying suffering forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point. Because I think a lot of people, they're scared to relive that pain. Yeah, so they just repress more and more, and then eventually it comes up. You can't keep pushing it down.
Yeah,
and that turns into anxiety, depression, anger, definitely. Yeah. Well, very informative, my daughter.
I know. That was a lot of deep stuff in a short time.
Yeah. So, Skylar, how do people find you?
Well, you can, the best way to find me is my Instagram, which is just Skylar Sustin. So SkylarSustin. And then you can reach out to me on there if you want to work with me. I offer the emotion release coaching sessions, which is what I talked about today. But I also do personal development coaching, which is more goal-based, more about uncovering and overcoming limiting beliefs, mindsets, blocks, more follow-ups to, you know, the motion releasing, kind of going deeper with all of that. And yeah, I would say that's the best way to get a hold of me these days.
And you do remote sessions, right? Doesn't have to be in person.
Yeah, they're all mainly over Zoom. because I don't really have anywhere else to do them but over Zoom. But yeah, they're all, so I can do them, wherever you are in the world. It'll be over online.
Awesome. That's how most people are doing it nowadays.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Skylar. Your wisdom is always awesome on our show. And you guys can go back and listen to another show she was on a few shows back. Mm-hmm. And just wanted to remind everyone to check out talkpurposeandtruth.com, because we have a new ad membership program where you could have your ad on every single episode we do for a year, which imagine how much exposure that would be. So contact us if you'd like to be considered for that.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thanks, Skylar. Thanks, Sissy.
Thank you guys. Always great to be on here.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. Find out more at talkpurposeandtruth.com. And follow us at Talk Purpose Truth on Instagram and Facebook.